What is it I read today that Quip said, you don't have to remind me of my age. I have a bladder that'll do that.
That's so true. All day.
Mayor may be tagging with us.
Okay, what time do we have to leave on Friday?
Well, we have to be there by 5, but I want to get there in enough time.
Yeah.
What's that?
So it's an hour tomorrow, is it 2 hours?
A little, about 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Ms. Rosalie would like to address the city council real quick. Ms. Rosalie, you ready? What are you gonna say? Say thank you for your service.
Thank you to service.
Thank you for your service. Some of our students baked some cookies and made cards for our 3 members that are departing the city council. So we wanted to come say thank you for everything you've done for our city. So if you'll go give yours right there to Ms. White, okay? You're gonna give yours to Mr. Sprouls right there. And come here, Ms. Leslie. You're gonna give yours to Ms. Willis right over here.
Ah, yum, yum.
Sure you're gonna share.
Take your cookies.
Good idea.
Hey, Dallas, take a picture with you? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Sure. Hey, Leslie, go back over there. You guys take a picture real quick. Go back over there. She wants to get you a picture. What's this? This isn't an iPhone. I don't use iPhone. Step out.
Oh, you're right.
Get out of the picture.
They're supposed to email me or give them to me this week and I'll bring them back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dallas, for that. But you still got 2 minutes. You want to be able to come and talk a little bit about your program? I'm sorry, you got a minute.
1 minute.
1 minute, I can do it quickly. Well, my name's Dallas Kennedy. I work with the Transition Learning Center with Ector County Independent School District, and we work with 18 to 21-year-olds that are transitioning into adulthood. So if we have students that, if they still have skills they need to work on towards adulthood, we work on them. And I don't know about y'all, but when you were 21, I doubt any of you were ready for adulthood. So we work on cooking, cleaning, getting jobs, doing service for our community. So we do a lot of things. But thank you, Mayor, for having us.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you. Yeah, so now we got this long pause. But I thought it was a little, Dallas reached out to me yesterday, said, can we do that? So, well, we don't have the agenda, but we can do it before we call the meeting to order. So now this is the awkward pause that we get to 3 o'clock. There we go. I will call the city council work session, I'll call it to order, being Tuesday, October 18th, year of our Lord 2022, being 3 p.m. Anyone choosing can stand up. Our invocation was given to us by Councilmember Mark Mata.
Please bow your heads. Father God, we thank you for this day you've given us, Lord Jesus, and we thank you for this opportunity that we have to just come together, Lord, and before you, Lord, and just be here, Lord, Father God, just discuss the issues that are at hand for our city. Thank you, Father God, for the rain that you have blessed us with, Lord. There's so much, it's very welcomed. Father God, I just pray that, Lord, you may just be with us today as we tackle the issues, Lord, that we have facing our cities. Lord, I just pray that you may just give us the knowledge and wisdom that we need to make the wise decisions. In your name we pray, amen.
Be seated. First item on the agenda is Discover Odessa Quarterly Report. Ms. Monica Shawner.
Thank you all, and good afternoon. It's good to see you all. Okay, I don't know if I know how to, let me see if I know how to do this. Okay. Is it just swiping here?
You guys are sharing your cookies, right?
It's your side, isn't it?
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is Discover Odessa's quarterly report for the months of July through September 2022. As you can see, when these last 3 months, in July, August, and September, Discover Odessa assisted with 37 total groups. We did have 83,081 attendees with the several events that we assisted with, and a total of 1,897 room nights between these groups. And as far as total economic impact, you can see that August had the largest amount. Any questions on this first page? Okay. Next, you can see this consists of all the different groups that Discover Odessa worked with, and we have a few pictures up there. You see the Cowboy Fast Draw that we were invited to participate with. The mayor participated along with us, and he made sure to let us know that he did beat all of the Discover Odessa staff that participated too. So we did assist with Permian Basin Fair and Expo, West Texas Warbirds, UTPB Volleyball, but just to note some of the ones that are listed there, the 4-H Youth Professional State Meeting, Abigail Pritchard is our local meeting planner for that. She did say that it was a very successful event. She's attended 2 conferences since then and has had several compliments on the experience that the attendees had here in Odessa. And I'm going to get back to that and why that's important. Also, the Optimist International North Texas District Annual Meeting, that meeting had not been here in Odessa since 2006. We had the Boomer Bust Cornhole Tournament. Mark DeAnda is the local meeting planner for that event. That brought in 255 participants, and the estimated economic impact for that event was 103,456 and had over 130 room nights from that event. And then both UTPB and Odessa College hosted their volleyball tournaments in August, and both were very successful. Any questions on those events? Okay. The upcoming groups, you can see, we have the ones that are listed in blue are groups that were unplanned for and not budgeted for in the current fiscal year. And so we've had several walk-in thus far, and this is only October. The Texas Association for Continuing Educators, that's through Odessa College. The House Committee of Environmental Regulation, Brooks Landgraf, that's his group. Fire and Rescue Pipe and Drum Corps. This is a gentleman that is a fireman that is beginning to raise money and through an event to recognize our local veterans. And then a 5-on-5 soccer. And then the ones, and there's some others listed there too, but the ones in purple, those are events that were brand new to Odessa last year, and they have chosen to come back this year. And that's the hope that our department continues, is that we can recruit a brand new event and they'll continue to come back to Odessa. So we believe in those 2 events, with that consistency, we'll have multiple groups, throughout every month in Odessa that will continue to make an impact in our economic impact. So that's our hope. Any questions on those groups there that are upcoming? Okay, next page. This is our marketing report, and we continue, Ashley Flores, who's our marketing and communication specialist, continues to grow our social media engagements. You can see some of the top Facebook and Instagram posts that are there, the billboard advertising. And so, again, the kiosk that's located at the conference center, that continues to get great engagements and, gives the information of where to go eat, where to stay, the events that are going on here in Odessa. We do business with a company called Madden Media. Madden Media has given us their analytics. We had over 2,733,000 impressions just for the last quarter. The Discover Odessa e-newsletter, that continues to grow through social media advertising. It's gained over 230 followers. And again, this also features inside scoop of events that are going on, new businesses that are here, and a monthly blog. And so, we're continuing to battle the narrative that there's nothing to do in Odessa through the events that Ashley is promoting, and through all the organizations that exist in Odessa. And so they contact us, and we try to really push those out. And this is just, of course, our QR code that you can find all the information we talked about, but I just want to give a few notes from Discover Odessa. We did host a hotelier and tourism meeting that was held on August 25th. This is a quarterly meeting where all hotels, local attractions, officials, restaurants, and media are invited. We feature a guest speaker that's talking about the community. On August 25th, Michael Marrero, our city manager, was our guest speaker and did a great job of presenting the ongoing projects that are going on and fielded questions by the attendees. And so we're very grateful, Michael, for your time and your continued support. The Discover Odessa staff has conducted 2 site visits for Odessa. The Texas Chamber of Commerce Executives Conference that's coming in June of 2023, and that's where I'm getting back to what I referenced earlier. This particular conference, that meeting planner, the state meeting planner, said that one of their committees that chose Odessa, one of their members, had attended the TACVB conference in January, and because of that experience, she just gave her, what's the word I'm trying to look for? She gave her suggestion of choosing Odessa, and so that committee chose Odessa through her experience. The League of United Latin American Citizens, AKA LULAC, their state convention and ladies conference will be coming here in 2024. Carol Uranga is the local meeting planner for that and gets all the credit for pushing for Odessa. And Amanda Johnson, our sales group specialist, will be leaving for Abilene here shortly to go and bid for a conference for the Texas Crime Stoppers 36th Annual Conference in 2025. We will be competing against 2 other cities, and so anyway, we'll find out tomorrow morning whether or not Odessa wins that. And the Sports Events Recruitment Program, that is the funding that Discover Odessa Sports Sales Specialist Teresa Vasquez, it's overseen by her and the Discover Odessa Sports Committee. We've already had 3 different groups that have applied for that money. So this is, again, just October, and so we're glad to see the business that's returning. And then we do have our upcoming meeting planners celebration on November 10th from 4 to 6 p.m. And this is when Discover Odessa recognizes all of those that work hard to put on their events. And so we hope that you all can come to that as well and just help support and celebrate their efforts that they do. Do you have any questions for our department, for me? Okay, well, gosh, everybody's so quiet. Well, thank you for your time. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. We're going to move on to item 2, Floyd, Gwynn, and Public Art Update. Randy Ham.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, Council. IT, please. All right, there we go. I see it right there. I have 3 items up to showcase today. The first is the Floyd Gwynn Park Public Art Commission. This is budgeted at $80,000 as part of the Percent for Art program. Over 78 artists applied for this commission from across the United States. 3 finalists were notified and put together a proposal that was sent to a selection committee that included Mr. Patton from Parks and Rec, Councilwoman Willis, myself, and 2 members of the public as well. And the proposal you see before you is Formations by Randy Walker Artists. This piece is an homage to the fact that Floyd Gwynn was originally an airport for Ector County. The artist took that inspiration and that history to create a piece of art that illustrates the migratory flight path of birds and also resembles airplanes. It is to be situated between the Gathering Plaza and a proposed splash pad right in front of the Police Athletic League gym in front of Floyd Gwynn at the corner of West County Road and 10th. Here you see the detail of the installation and a rendering of what it will look like once it's installed. Now that we have the budget and we have the design, we will be bringing this to council for final approval for design so that we can have this installed as they complete Floyd Gwynn. Do I have any questions from the council on this particular?
Council, any questions?
Cost.
80,000 is budgeted at 80,000, and you can see the budget right there. 16,000 for artist fees, 2,500 for travel, 2,000 for structural engineering, 16 for foundation site work, 30 for fabrication, 10 for installation, and 3,500 for freight and delivery, right at 80,000. And we think we'll probably come in just a little under in terms of travel and the structural engineering costs as well.
Randy, do you mind going back to the elevations slide?
Yes, sir.
So that is approximately 9 feet wide by 24 feet long, is that right?
That is correct.
And when do you plan that this will begin?
As soon as council approves, we'll get the contract executed and they'll start fabrication immediately. Probably 3 months, 90 days to 120 days. He's very eager to get started, and so are we.
So are you planning this to be on the agenda for next week?
Yes, ma'am.
Do those blades up top move?
They do not. They are stationary. They're highly reflective, though. One of the things that the artist had mentioned in his proposal is that you can actually see yourself by looking up and looking at those structures, but they are stationary.
So how do you plan to keep the grackles off of them?
That's exactly what I was thinking. They're gonna be bird purchase.
I'm just gonna stand there and scream a lot. No, part of the structural fabrication would include, bird spikes, smaller ones than the ones that we would have on a bigger building. But yes, one of the good things about it being stationary is lower ongoing maintenance costs as well. As much as I would like to have kinetic pieces to this, the less moving parts, the less maintenance, and the longevity of the piece, the life extends that much more.
Council, any further questions?
All right, 2 more things that we're going to. As you know, we have a Mural Fest coming up in May of 2023, 5 murals on 5th Street. 4 of the murals are on private property. The 5th mural location we would like the council to consider is to allow us to put a mural on the side of the Ector Theater inside that square. This mural will be funded privately through the money we are raising for Mural Fest. And we think that a mural on the side of the Ector Theater will help activate the downtown space. So I wanted to put that on your radar and be able to answer any questions now before we move any further forward. The other 4 locations are the new homemade wines, Copper Key Realty, Glitz, and if you hadn't asked me, I would have been able to tell you the 4th one. But those are 3 of the 4. And then, of course, the Ector Theater.
Are they all privately funded?
They're all privately funded, yes, sir. We received a substantial grant from the FMH Foundation for Mural Fest, and we have another grant out to the Meadows Foundation for Mural Fest just to fund the murals and the activities.
This being a public building, what do we have to execute to give permission? We have to do anything contractually?
Mayor, while Natasha's thinking of that, I want to remind the council that when former councils decided to do this project, their desire was to keep the building as original as possible. So as you contemplate that, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that.
What's the purpose of keeping it closest to its original?
Mayor, when this project was contemplated, there was a discussion of actually tearing it down at one point. But the council rethought it, and their decision was to keep the building and try to restore it to as original as it possibly could.
Okay.
And keep it that way.
Council, does anybody want to have a discussion on that? Was this before
It
y'all were?
started before us,
Yeah.
and then we kind of took it up from there. I'd really just kind of like for us to think about it and talk about it.
I would also add, just for consideration, that the design of this mural, because it is public art, would include members of the Public Art Committee, members of the public downtown Odessa, and any community stakeholders to be able to weigh in on the design. So it wouldn't be just a design thrown up because Randy decides it's cool. It would actually, we would have public input on the design. We're looking, Coda Whitson, who is the artist who did the ECISD development mural, is also a mural festival organizer and has organized several mural festivals across the United States. So we've contracted with her to help us run the mural selection because she already does it, and so it'll prevent us from making some rookie mistakes. And one of those is making sure that there's public engagement in the design of the murals, even the ones that are on private business.
Does council want to, schedule in the next work session more discussion about this particular mural on the Ector Theater?
My tendency is that I look at it as a historic building. I mean, I'm old enough that I spent a lot of time right there. I kind of like to see it left like it is, but that's just me.
Okay.
I like historical buildings. And that's why we did that originally, I think, or at least that's the idea that I had. No big deal one way or the other, except it was always a brown brick wall.
Well, it's
It
important
just
that
goes
we.
with the green stuff. I don't know.
It's important that we get this input. We believe that it will help activate the downtown space in a permanent manner. But we also have backup sites if the council decides that this is not the place. So it's not an all or nothing, but I think it would be a really great way to showcase. The murals that we're doing for Mural Fest this year will all have a music theme because Odessa has a music-friendly designation from the state of Texas. And so we believe that a mural on the side of the Ector that celebrates the musical history of Odessa would be a great addition, and it would not be a detraction.
Can you bring us those additional sites to choose from?
Our backup sites?
Yes.
All of the backup sites are private, so they're going to be other buildings. We're looking at Glasheen. We're looking at the backside of Icon Tavern. We're looking at, we're actually talking to Ector County about putting a mural behind Knoll Plaza on the library, behind the stage, which would be a really good place too. I just hesitate to put a mural on the side of the library while it's the future.
I would too.
Yeah, that's under consideration, but it's far down the list. So if we get no after no after no after no, although I will say that Glitz and the law office.
What is Glitz?
Glitz used to be Proteus Salon, and now it's Glitz Salon.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
It's your district. Do you
Well,
have a thought on it?
My thought was, what if we did it on, I've seen some cities where they do a mural on the side of a wall on a big canvas. Where if a future council or whatever wanted to remove it and place it somewhere else, it's not permanent on that location. Would that be an option for this?
It is an option. It's a more expensive option. It's actually more expensive to make it that much more temporary. However, the material that we would use for painting on the mural is also, I mean, you can clean it off. It's not permanent. One thing that Coda Whitson does not do is seal her murals, which allows the brick behind it to breathe so it doesn't decay. And it also makes it very easy to remove the mural if we have to. I mean, it's soap and water, and it's going to take some elbow grease, right? But it's a lot less cost prohibitive to use paint instead of printing a canvas and then attaching that, because then you're going to have glue, or you're going to have heat shrink, or you're going to need something
Wear and tear.
to adhere it. And then at that point, it becomes very difficult to take it back off.
Okay.
We've got two options. We can give Randy direction now, or we can bring it later in a couple of weeks for further discussion and consensus.
Discuss it a little bit more.
Want to do that?
Yeah.
I'm very happy to talk about this more.
We'll let the lobbying begin.
I think there's a great interest in the murals, Randy, and I appreciate what you're doing. I noticed when Monica was making her presentation, it was one of the top web page visits was the Odessa Mural Guide, so.
We're very proud of being able to do that, and we're actually working towards an entire public art interactive map for January. Hopefully to be in place before Amazon gets here and before Mural Fest gets here. Finally, we do have one more % for art project to discuss, and that's the water treatment plant. Because of the fact that the water treatment plant is not publicly accessible and is not a place where you can readily go and visit every day, and it's kind of removed. It makes it very difficult to put something of significance there at the water treatment plant. However, we looked at our options and realized with the excitement surrounding murals in Odessa, a good alternative to that is to paint a mural on this side of the building which faces 42nd Street. It's also at a much, much lower cost of $50,000, and we can probably get that in at 40 for a mural. Mr. Patton has agreed to remove the trees that block the view of that building. So that's somewhere that we could create a piece of art that honors the ordinance that we have, while also being good public stewards of the money and creating something that is still long-lasting and significant while also being publicly accessible.
And the trees currently do not look like this.
No, they do not.
Just
They don't even
point that
look
out.
close to that. And Mr. Patton expressed quite a keen interest in getting those removed regardless.
So Randy, what is the cost that we're talking about? Because the 1% of the water treatment plant, that is a significant amount of money.
Yes, we're looking at budgeting 50,000 and maybe coming in at 40.
That's for everything.
That's for everything.
Which is significantly less than.
That's a
1%.
significant, that's not even 1% of the 1%.
Right.
So that's what we would want to do for that. Because you just can't walk up and go into the water treatment plant. So,
Well, what 1% of 93 million is $920,000. That's
Yes.
not good stewards of our money.
sure.
And I applaud Randy for understanding that
Yes.
and foreseeing that, so.
That's something that we continually want to do, is make sure that we're still giving the public art and showcasing our city in a way that is giving us really good PR, while also considering how much of that public money goes towards these projects.
I like that idea. I like that.
Let me ask a question. Those trees, what are they?
That would be a question for Mr. Patton.
Okay, well, since you threw him under bus and said he's the one that wants to take them down.
Actually, Mr.
He is
Patton.
Parks and Recreation Director, and we are Tree USA.
Yeah, yes.
So,
But I tell you, if you go look at them now, Mayor,
They don't look
they
that good.
are nothing
And I would be happy to personally go plant 2 trees somewhere else to make up for that.
in their honor.
Yes.
Honor the dead tree.
in equal diameter?
Well, let's not get crazy.
Council, further discussion? Randy, anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir, I appreciate your time and interest.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you.
We move on to item 3, consider approving economic development agreement between Odessa Development Corporation, Border States Industries Incorporated. Melanie Holman?
Good afternoon. I'm filling in for David Boutan, who was, is out of town, I think. At the October 13 ODC meeting, we unanimously voted to approve an agreement with Border States Industries, Inc. for a grant in the amount of $970,660. This grant would be in exchange for their making a total capital investment of $12 million and adding a total of 10 jobs to 35 jobs that would be retained, generating payroll in excess of $11 million. Does the council have any questions about?
Melanie, this is a company that exists already, and they're located behind Hillard, right? Around Hillard, printing on Golder and University. This is a company that was, they purchased a local company, which I think was Zimco or something like that. So we're currently, right now, they have 23,610 square feet facility. What happens to that facility? They are moving, correct?
Yes, they're.
There's a relocation?
Yes, they're gonna construct a 30,000 square foot facility.
So we're gaining roughly just under 7,000 square feet. Okay. So this, ODC is doing this on the side of retention?
Retention and capital investment.
Yes, because they're building a new facility. Are they doing it within an industrial, area?
Yes, it's on, the corner of Meadow and, Trunk Street in the, Industrial District 1C.
So, Michael, what are we doing there as far as, sales tax? Are we doing, a payment in lieu of sales tax?
So we get a payment in lieu of ad valorem tax.
Ad valorem? Okay.
Yeah, we do not, and I'll look at the city attorney for correction, but we do not generate sales tax.
And that's something that we need to address in our interlocal, how we're gonna continue in the future.
Yes, sir, we certainly do.
So how long would that agreement be in place, as far as for the ad valorem? Do we
For as
know?
long as the business is there,
Yeah, for as long as the industrial district agreement is in effect.
So it's not a renewal, it's just once it goes in, it's
you know,
permanent?
Mayor, I don't recall the specifics of this agreement. I'm not sure what term was established on this one.
I don't know, there has not been one.
Can
We have not received anything to draft an
We-
industrial district
So
agreement yet.
currently, we don't even have the contract right now.
We do not.
Is
We
there a
do
way that
not.
we can we be able to review those terms on the contract before we get put on the agenda on Tuesday, just to make sure? Because, you know, every time we put it on the executive session, it's automatically already on the agenda. And so, you know, I know there's time constraints, but I'd sure like to be able to read those little details.
Well,
If
we
can-
haven't received anything yet, and today's Tuesday.
So what do we-
And so we can receive something to start the contract by tomorrow, then we could have it ready for the agenda for Friday.
Who are we waiting on?
For that, I thought you took the info from the paperwork from the,
We'll have to look at everything and see what we would need in addition to that to get the,
need any additional info, just be on my email.
The other one is that then in year one, they would be providing an additional 10 jobs.
Yes.
That the ODC, those creation of new jobs, not construction jobs, but once they go into
Those are
the-
permanent jobs.
Yeah, permanent jobs, so they're expanding their workforce also.
Correct.
Mayor, our industrial district agreements have normally been for 7 years. Is that something the council would still be okay with, including in that agreement?
We'd like to make it a part of the discussion. I don't know if they, have y'all discussed it with border states? Has that been discussed in terms of the contract? Are they aware of that?
Not at this time, no. They are aware that that is in an industrial district,
Uh-huh.
because when we were originally discussing them purchasing the property, I did let them know that. And that it would, a fee in lieu of taxes as far as ad valorem property tax, and that also they would have to go by city permitting and inspections for the build process.
The reason why I bring up the issue for the reason is that we know, we've had a lot of discussion as of late of compensation, things of that nature, and we pose a lot of options. One of the things that's been brought up is ad valorem. And so the thing is that one of the things is this something that we need to, as a council, discuss as far as interlocal. So the thing, you know, I've never really gotten into the details of what we are we losing, gaining? Is it a plus minus on the ad valorem, especially with appraisal rates going on? I don't know. I don't have the answer, but is it something that, you know, that we're posed with and something that we have to go forward? I guess my question is that, you know, seeing the budget constraints that we have as far as in compensation, are we leaving money on the table that could actually help us going forward, not just particularly with this project? And so that's why I want to be able to look at the details just a little bit more.
Well, I believe that historically, the industrial district agreements, the fee is the same amount as what it would be equal to what the ad valorem property tax.
Yeah, but on an annual basis, that appraisal district goes up, and that thing moves, and so that fee does not.
Mayor, I believe that all of our industrial district agreements also include a provision for annexation that would allow us, if the council, because I understand the question that you're asking, Mayor, certainly something that we need to discuss.
Yeah, and the thing is that those are things that we have to be able to sit down and discuss. It has just lingered, and so, but that's, Council, is there any other questions you would be able to ask on this? I mean, this is a local company. It's been in, as far as the facility, Border States has been here a little bit, but The company in itself is, I don't know if anybody understands, it's a electrical company. They have transformers, utility poles, and so what they wind up doing is they wind up doing grid work. And so, I don't know if anybody knows the physical location. Reason why is that I had a shop right behind that, there's a shop right behind their facility. That's why I'm familiar with the company. So, it is, I think the terms are kind of within what we've approved in the past. This is definitely something, retention, that we wind up doing. There are just some minor, questions I want to answer that I've made it known. But council, anybody have any questions or discussions on this contract?
I guess my only question is why there's a question. It seems like it's in the same group that we have discussed and passed before, with ODC's recommendations on this. And I guess I do understand that there will be always a concern over the sales tax issue, but that's an issue with the county that's not going to be easily resolved.
Yeah, but we're not talking about excuse me one second, but we're not talking about the sales and taxes district.
Oh, that's what I
No,
understood you to say.
no, ma'am. No.
But on the same thing, on ad valorem tax, I don't think I understand what the concern is.
There's not a concern on the ad valorem or that's just an ongoing situation that we have. But, when you wind up discussing ODC contracts, things being equal, they're not always equal. My concern isn't the industrial district versus ad valorem. That is an ongoing issue that we have. That's something that we as a council have to discuss that we have not been able to get to. Tax assistant is a completely different topic that does not apply in this case at all. When I looked at the initial contract, I was looking at, that's when I realized this is a local company. They are moving from one area to the other, and so there was a huge discussion about terms. Oftentimes, when once the council approves this contract, it's in the hands of the ODC.
Right.
And so oftentimes, you'll have companies that come just a little shy of meeting their criteria within year 1, year 2, year 3, or 4. And so then it becomes an interpretation of the contract. Contracts are literal, but sometimes, you wind up having individuals or committees that will basically use the term, well, it depends on your interpretation of a contract. And so that's why there's a few questions that I wanted to ask and I wanted to have before me before we put it on the agenda for approval. Because once we do that, there is a resolution out there that bypasses the council. And so I want to make sure we cross the extra Ts and dot the Is before we get to that point. That's my concern.
Mayor Hoven,
Melanie,
currently, I'm sorry, go
I just
ahead.
want to ask a question.
Sure.
Don't I remember that y'all already covered this and made some provisions in this at ODC?
Our
I know I was at a meeting
current,
that
yes,
happened.
our current contract that we have with our grantees contemplates that if there is a shortfall while there was a good faith effort to comply with the agreement, that the grant payments can be prorated
Yes.
proportionate to compliance. So,
I'm aware of that.
yeah, we've included that in our contract. That's something that the entire board voted on
Yes, ma'am.
to make that change to our contracts going forward.
And you're absolutely right. There are prorated measures to do that hadn't been put in the past, but that's not exactly what I'm talking about. And so, but, I have some concerns and, and the thing is, there's gonna be provisions to be able to answer that. Once we read them, they'll come up before the council and we'll discuss it as a council.
I'll be happy to take any concerns you have back to the board for any revisions to our contract, if you'll let me know what those are.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I got a question. The fee that they paid in this industrial, is that a stationary? It doesn't rise or?
So,
it's
Mr.
a set
Mata,
fee,
that
correct?
should be equivalent to what they would pay if the property were located in the city limits of Odessa.
It's collected by the appraisal district and can compute it in the same method as your ad valorem tax.
So So when their property value goes up,
It should be
the
reflected.
fee would reflect that?
It should be, yes, sir.
And there lies the mystery of appraisals.
But, exactly. It's based on appraisal.
Yeah.
Especially when it's windshield.
No, there's not any.
Exactly, windshield appraisals, and that right there is where the devil's in the detail.
Were there other areas? I guess I'm just kind of confused on what you're wanting them to bring back. or
Well,
what you want.
they understand it. You completely understand what I'm asking for, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
Mayor,
very
a
simple.
contract.
Thank you,
Yes.
I appreciate you.
And with those contracts, we do fee in lieu of taxes is what we call it, and it is assessed by the appraisal district.
Yeah, they understand it, they're good. Any other questions? Anything else we want to add? Thank you very much, I appreciate
Thank
you.
you all.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
We're gonna move on to item 4, consider purchase of traffic paint. Mr. Feldman,
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
do we get to do the secondary, streets now?
They're out there now.
Awesome.
Well,
Thank you
if
very
it was a little drier, they'd be out there now,
Yeah,
but
they-
that's
but-
what we're working on.
much. Okay, good.
This agenda item is for traffic paint. This will buy roughly 55 gallon drums of white and yellow. This is considered a truckload. I usually order a truckload 2 or 3 times a year. This truckload is $52,315.
Council, any questions? How have we been delayed on the paint, have we not? There were some issues with a while back when I had asked, we were doing the primary thoroughfares, but we were not getting to the secondary. For the
There was a
reason is
paint
those-
shortage.
There you go.
Yes. Yep.
So I want to be able to
So
state
now-
for the record, because if anybody noticed secondary, like 17th Street, Hancock, and all those, and they're not painted, it's because, not that we weren't getting out there, it's because we had a paint shortage.
Yes.
Okay.
That was the
So,
thing.
the phone calls can stop, we got the paint. I can't see at night, is what I keep hearing. Council, any questions?
Heard the same thing.
Yeah, right? Yeah, everyone, especially my dad. And my dad can't see in the daytime. Well, he is 92. Yeah, he does have an excuse. He's 92 years old. Any further questions? Hal, I appreciate you. We're gonna move on to item 5, consider award bid for vendors for annual water and wastewater treatment chemicals. Mr. Kerr.
Mayor and council, we have for you bids on 4 of our chemicals that we use for the water treatment and wastewater treatment plants. These are annual bids. The first one that we have for you is chlorine bid. We have received a single bid from DCP Industries at $290 for each 150-pound cylinder and $2,239 for each 2,000-pound cylinder. This is the lone supplier in our region. We would recommend award for those bids. Polymer bid is item 2. A single bid was received on October 6th to supply polymer used in the processing of waste sludge at the Barrington Water Reclamation Facility. The sole bidder is SNF Polydyne Incorporated. It's $1.88 per pound, and we would recommend an award to SNF Polydyne for that product. Item 3 is liquid ammonium sulfate. This is used in disinfection with chlorine. We use chloramines in our disinfection process. 3 bids were received on October 6th to supply 40% liquid ammonium sulfate used in the disinfection of potable water. The low bidder, Chameleon Industries, at $0.215 per pound. Again, staff recommends award to Chameleon Industries for this product. And item 4 is liquid aluminum sulfate. Chameleon Industries Incorporated is the current supplier of the liquid aluminum sulfate, and has agreed to extending the existing price of $472 per dry ton for the coming year. Staffing recommends award to Chameleon Industries. All these expenditures are budgeted within the operations budgets of the water treatment plant and the Barrington Water Reclamation Plant, chemicals and insecticides budget lines. Any questions?
You wanna disclose the totals on everything?
So the total amounts on this are, $1,295,140 for the year,
That's not bad. Chemicals are up what?
40% approximately.
I was gonna say 50, man. Council, any questions? Is that all shipping? Is that all shipping?
Is the increases?
Yeah.
I think a lot of these are byproducts of oil production and refining, so it's tied to that as
So
well.
so shipping and everything.
Yes, sir.
So had you anticipated the 40%?
I'm sorry?
Had you anticipated the 40% in your budget?
We did anticipate that in the budgets, as we saw some of that last year as well.
Yeah, I think I remember you talking about that with us. Okay.
Council, any questions, direction? Mr. Curry, anything else?
No, sir?
Thank you, I appreciate
Thank you.
that. We're gonna consider provision of property located near the corner of Fifth Street and Grant for the purpose of downtown redevelopment through the use of Chapter 380 agreement. Ms. Homer?
Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, Council. The city desires to promote economic development in downtown Odessa by attracting businesses through incentives that will increase the likelihood that they will succeed while also promoting the redevelopment of downtown Odessa. The property we are discussing is located at Fifth and Grant, the old JCPenney's lot. This building sat vacant for around 15 years. It was hit by a car, it was boarded up, and it was very unsightly for the downtown area. In 2016, the city acquired the property. It was determined that it would be too costly to repair, and it was demolished. Currently, it sits as a vacant lot. In 2019, the city put out a request for proposals and received no response. Not a single proposal was submitted. Earlier this year, we sent out another request for proposals for this lot. This time, we received 2 proposals. A committee was formed to review those proposals, and it was made up of myself, Councilmember Swanner, Councilmember Mata, City Manager Mr. Marrero, and Assistant City Manager at the time, Philip Urita. That committee met with each of the groups that had submitted a proposal and reviewed both of them. After review, the committee selected the Cena Realty LLC group to move forward with. This group is the owner of 2 prominent businesses downtown, the House Downtown Bar and El Silanoense. These businesses are established, and the redevelopment of these have changed the dynamic of our downtown for the positive. We have seen great response from the public at both of these locations, and they have been a great addition to our downtown area. The approval of this agreement will allow the city to execute a Chapter 380 incentive agreement with Cena Realty LLC. The consideration for this project is the provision of the property owned by the city that will serve as a site for 3 restaurant spaces. In return, Cena Realty LLC proposes to develop, construct, and maintain the development with an investment of $2.5 million and the creation of 25 permanent full-time jobs and the retention of 20 full-time jobs in downtown Odessa. The construction of the restaurants will have a direct, indirect, and induced economic impact in Odessa, and the creation of 25 permanent jobs will expand employment opportunities to local residents. Additionally, the new restaurants will add to the property tax base and the sales tax base. I have with us one of the owners, Fernando Rodriguez, to discuss the proposed project with you both.
So this is a proposed site plan here, and we have the elevation if we scroll down here in a bit, but this would actually be 2 restaurants and a rooftop bar, not 3 restaurants. The one on the west end is 5,300 and some change square feet, and that would actually be our current restaurant that we have downtown. The building we're in, we're leasing. It's simply not big enough. Space is small, kitchen small, so we for the traffic we have, we need something bigger. The one on the east end, the 3,200 square feet, would actually be a new concept type of restaurant. And then, Casey, if you can scroll down to the second page, that would be the rooftop bar, which is 2,200 square feet indoors with about 1,000 patio overlooking Grant Street. And that southwest corner would be just a piece overlooking 5th Street with the entrance being on 5th Street on that. And we have the elevation of that, which...
Sorry.
One more down. That would be, on the top would be the elevation if you're standing on 5th Street. on the bottom would be the elevation if you're standing on Grant. If we look at the top first, on the right side, you can see more so of a modern vibe, but still filling into the Texas scenery for the 3,200 square feet. And the very left entrance would actually be the entrance to the rooftop bar. And of course, you have access through an elevator and set of steps. And the bottom elevation, the only blunder in this is I forgot to put a door right in the middle, but that would actually be the door to the El Sinaloense restaurant, the bigger space. And on top of that sits the rooftop bar, 2 garage-style doors that will help you open up. If the weather permits, you can hang out inside, outside, as far as just the main door there in the center as well. So with this being said, I'm just kind of repeat some of what Casey said. The jobs that would be retained would be strictly from the restaurant that we'd be moving over, and all the ones created would be from the new restaurant and the rooftop bar as well. And that's pretty much what I have on presentation. And
So currently, how many employees do you have right now?
as far as in that
In the-
one
in the
restaurant
Sinaloense.
or total?
In the
Sinaloense?
Sinaloense, what do you have now?
2025.
2025. So then you're just going to create the additional once the new one comes in. There'll be wait staff and kitchen staff and management.
Yes, sir. That one won't be as big, so I'm gonna say realistically 20 or so, and then the rooftop bar is about 15.
When this was talked about, one of my concerns were the second story overlooking the sidewalks. That would be facing Grant Street, correct?
Yes, sir.
So that's gonna be rooftop glass, bottles. How are you going to prevent, people throwing things down? This is a bar.
Yeah, I understand, and
And it is alcohol fused, and things
Yes,
are
sir.
gonna happen.
Yeah, I understand bars get some bad rep, but from what we've done so far, aside from Sinaloense, we have another bar, and we have a third bar opening up next week off of Fodry. From what we've done, as far as how we manage things, we've yet to avoid any troubles, but I don't have a direct answer for that. All I can say is keep running them how we're running them. If we do run into trouble, the only alternative there would be to get rid of glass, and that's about as far as we can go. Me personally, one of my favorite things to do, and what I spent my 20s was traveling the world, and rooftop bars have been around. They'll always be around, and they have a way of running them to where people, I've seen them where there's glass, I've seen them where there's plastic, but there's ways of adjusting depending on your crowd. And I'd like to think we're gonna present this to get the right people in there that aren't gonna start trouble and everything.
Even just an accidental spill.
Which, yes, sir, you're right.
Especially, let's just say, for example, we're having a fandango,
Mhm.
very crowded situation. Glass comes down, somebody seriously gets hurt. Your liability is your liability. That's the only concern. We've never had a concept like this in Odessa, especially downtown area.
Understood. The only other option would be to get with NC Surgeon to try to push that back a little, maybe give you some spacing.
Well,
Which I understand. I mean, if you're gonna chunk a bottle, you're gonna chunk a bottle. I get that 100%, but.
There's no way to, it's just something that, no matter where we go and we see these concepts.
Yes, sir.
It's just something, it's not just here, but it's anywhere else.
Yes, sir.
And so, that was the first thing that I saw when I saw the concept. The other one is, let me ask you a little bit, a question about, the management and everything. There are about 5 owners in this Insania Realty, correct?
Yes, sir.
So currently y'all renting that, used to be, I remember it as Barnaby's. And then, are you leasing?
Is that Grant
where Sinaloense
Street
is?
Bar, right? Well, where we're at right now, we're leasing, yes, sir.
So y'all be leaving that and coming?
We'll be leaving over, but I do have a good relationship with the landlord. I don't have an answer on what's gonna happen to that space, but
Yeah.
we might just keep it and do something else with it.
And currently do y'all have also investment in a new lounge or something over there on Fodry? Am I
Lux
correct?
Lounge, yes, sir.
What's that called?
Lux Lounge?
Lux Lounge.
Yes, sir.
And then also you also put investment in Dos Amigos, is that correct?
Well, that's ongoing, yes, sir. Nothing's.
Are
been
y'all
finalized.
majority or minority owners there?
We will be majority if everything.
So y'all still in the
Yeah,
process
we're
of
still in the process. We're helping out right now. We're more of management helping out the current owner, but I don't wanna lie to you, nothing's been finalized 100%, so.
So Senate LLC is located on 9903 Holiday Drive.
Yes, sir.
Which is a home. Who is the other individual that owns the facility? I don't know who that is.
The home?
Yes, I looked it up, it's Reedway.
Yeah, so, long story short, I'm getting a house built, and I'm using his home address. It just kind of puts me in a bind, but that's my cousin, so
Okay.
that's who it is.
It's just that, you know, I've asked around, been trying to meet you guys, just want to be able to be familiar with who the ownership is.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
You know,
and this was kind of, it's on my driver's license, so I'm having that as my home address, just while my house is ready, so.
And Michael, what's our investment here on the purchase of the building and of the old J.C. Penney's, and then also in the demolition of it? And so
Yeah,
basically, we're turning this over.
That's what they've requested, yes, sir, Mayor. Casey has those numbers.
Yes, so the purchase price was $334,860. The demolition cost was $178,712. Total investment from the city is $513,572. 513,572.
And so we're looking at a 2-year build-out with options of 2 6-month extension gives you 3 years.
It's 24 to 30 month, yes, and then it's a 7-year 380 agreement, where they'll have the reporting period for 7 years.
That's reasonable. Council, do you have any questions?
Mr. Rodriguez, you already have a letter from the bank, right, securing the financing?
We have a letter, with anything else, you know, the language had to be correct, so as this was proposed February, March, we hadn't heard back from anybody in a bit, and then when we finally got the call back, we rushed into everything to try to get the drawings up, the bids up, and the banking involved. So from everything we provided, he said we're good, but obviously he can't guarantee anything until we get the bids, we get the business plan and all that stuff, so. And one of my bankers is actually in the room as well. I hope she don't think I'm cheating on her, because it's another bank, but I've been talking to all of them. I've been talking.
Hey, right now, you're in the dating phase, brother.
But like I said, I've been talking to all of them. This letter's from March when we first, because on that RFP, they needed some sort of lettering from the bank, so.
And we will need a official letter of commitment.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why we had asked for, after we get it for 4 months to get all that ready, because, I mean, all this stuff, especially if you're talking the millions, is gonna take a little bit, so.
Okay, so are you planning to collateralize the land and your building when you obtain the financing? Is that what your future plans are?
If that's gonna be an option, yes. If not, then
That
no.
depends on your banker.
Yes, sir.
Well, whatever you negotiate on the terms.
Yes, sir.
So your initial investment about 713,000?
Well, no, the neat thing about this, if it's gonna be owner occupied, you can go through SBA 100%, and their rates are a lot better, so, as far as down payment and stuff, but.
Okay. So, Casey, what are you seeking here? Are you seeking, Michael, you're seeking,
Mayor, you will see this at the next council meeting for the actual execution of the 380 agreement.
the 380 agreement is what we will be seeing?
Yes, sir.
And can we get that beforehand, before
Yeah.
Tuesday?
I do believe we have a draft, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
The draft should have been attached, but we,
This is it right here?
yes.
What I've been reading? Okay.
Oh, and one more quick, just to clarify for myself. So it's gonna be 2 restaurants, and one of the restaurants gonna have the bar, or it's gonna be 3 total, 3?
It's 3 total,
Okay,
2
great.
restaurants and then a rooftop bar.
All right, cool.
Each one is gonna have its patio too, separate patio.
Very good.
Any other further discussion or comments? Ms. Williams, anything else? Mr. Rodriguez? We're good? Thank you very much. We're gonna move on to item 7, consider approving and authorizing an amendment to the Parkway RV Group LLC Industrial District Agreement. Ms. Brooks?
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. The Parkway RV Group LLC has requested to add an amendment to their current industrial district agreement to include an additional 3.40 acre tract of Section 31, Block 41, T2S, Ector County, Texas. So basically, they just want to add the 3.4 acres to their current industrial district agreement. That agreement was signed in 2021. It's a 7-year agreement kind of like we discussed before, and it expires in 2028.
Council discussion?
So it won't change the length of the agreement, it just
No.
add the property to, through the
Yes,
term
just
of the
add
agreement.
that land.
Right. Okay.
Any comments, discussion? Mr. Brooks, are you seeking, it says right here that you're looking to approve, consider approving and authorizing, are you looking for direction?
Well, it'll be on your next agenda.
Okay, anything else?
That's it. And of course, we'll file the necessary notices of declaration with the county if it is approved.
Move on to item 8, Fireman's Pension Board update. Council members both Mana and Swanner, you have the floor.
Actually, the Firemen's Pension Board is here, and I believe one of them is going to speak and give us an update of what's been going on with the pension board. And the pension plan. Do you have anything to add?
Hello, hello. My name is Ben Marks. I'm with the Firefighters Pension Board, also known as Odessa Firefighters Relief and Retirement Fund. I guess what really brought us here, oh, by the way, we've got 2 other board members here, Eric Brown and Travis Jones, our administrator, Jill Contreras. But what brought us here was really wanting to give you guys an update. I don't remember how many of you were on the board last time we met back here in a work session. I don't even remember what year that was, but Ms. White, you were there. But what this is kind of an update. I'm really here to answer questions that you have once I start talking. As we've gone through the discussions with Evergreen, both sitting out here listening to y'all have discussions with them, the meetings we had with them as employees of OFR, the meetings we had with them as board members, with our association present as well. We tried to fill them in as good as we could on how a defined benefit plan works. They were kind of familiar with it. Only 80% of retirees in the country have, 80% have access to a defined contribution plan, 401k or something similar. Only 20% are defined benefits. So a lot of times stuff gets lost in translation. So we had conversations with them and let them know how things work here. But I have noticed, especially in the last meeting where Mrs. Muncy got up and discussed with y'all while y'all were talking about the Evergreen recommendations, the number of 28%, how much that y'all put into our pension. That is a very accurate number. That started this month. We are very grateful for that. As a pension fund and a pension board, we're very appreciative of the great working relationship we have with the city. But I really wanted to come up here and kind of give the details behind those numbers. 28% of pay is true, and it's a high number. The reason that number is so high is kind of what I want to get into here. If we go back a little ways, 2015, 2016, that's when, and I'm going to get into some details here. It's not at all entertaining, maybe a little enlightening. So if I get into the weeds, let me know and we'll come out. 2015, 2016 are when GASB 67 and 68 were not adopted. They were adopted in 13 and 14. They went into effect in 15 and 16. So what happened then by GASB 67 and 68 is our pension liabilities had to start being carried by the city and shown on the CAFRs as an actual liability in red ink. What happened then, the Texas State Legislature also passed a law, the Funding Soundness Restoration Plan, which we came to back to y'all in 2016 for assistance with. What happened then, that law changed, these GASB standards were adopted. Well, when the city had to start carrying that very large red number on their books, they became more interested in how things were going very quickly. Not to say you weren't interested before that, but things changed. So at that time, we had the state telling us, your numbers are poor, you have to submit this plan to get healthy, get under 40 years of amortization in 10 years. So what we did with that information, with the city's assistance, once Ms. Muncy actually came to our office back in 15, 16, and talked to us about this, is we formulated a plan with the city manager at the time, city council at the time, our entire membership at the time. What we needed to get from the hole we were in to what the state defined as healthy in 2016 was 24% of pay. Well, 24% of pay is a lot to ask for. We weren't going to come to the city and say, hey, give us 24% more on top of the 13 we were getting at the time. Nor are we going to go to the membership and say, hey, pony up 24% more of your pay, when at the time we were given 12. So we had to come up with it somewhere, or a combination of somewhere. So what we did is we got with our actuary that we hired in 2015 and said, okay, give us an idea of, we change benefits, we get an increase in contributions from the members, from the city, help us put this puzzle together. So what we did as a membership is, of that 24% of pay, we came up with 17 of it on our own through benefit reductions and benefit cuts. We cut, reduced, or got rid of every single benefit that we had in our plan. The benefits that Mrs. White referred to at one point in one of the meetings where I was up here talking, all of those are different now. Most of them gone. So of the 24 that we needed, we put our money where our mouth was as a membership and said, okay, we came up with 17 by forever changing our futures. Still left 7. We'll do even more. We'll give 3% more out of our paycheck for that privilege of cutting all of those benefits. That only left 4 for the city. City manager at the time was open to this suggestion, and city council ultimately agreed, and we moved down that road. So that was 2016. We got amortization period down to under 40, projected to be under 40 in 10 years, which would have been in 2026. We actually graduated 5 years early last year out of that plan because we got to under 40 years. We actually got down to, I believe it was 32 in 5 years. Most of that was because of the very favorable market conditions over the 3 years in a row. So we had the cuts, we had the contribution increases, and we had a very favorable stock market for 3 years. So we graduated early. Great news. Went to the membership, told them all the good news. So what has happened since then is the Texas legislature has passed a new FSRP law as of last year that now says, okay, you got under 40 years of amortization in 10 years, super. Now we want you under 30, and we also want your funded ratio or your funded percentage under over 65%. Well, the being under 30s, we're not really worried about. Our latest evaluation shows us to be at 29.9 when this goes into effect in the year 2025. But our funded percentage is where there's an issue. We are funded at about 38% of our liabilities. That's how much cash we have in the bank. So what's going to happen in 2025 is they're going to come. They already monitor us, the Pension Review Board. They monitor right at 100 funds in the state. And so they're aware of the movement of all the funds. And what's going to happen in 2025 is presumably we're going to be okay on the amortization period, but our funded ratio is not going to increase from 38% to 65% in the next 3 years. We need either a major influx of time or a major influx of cash. That's what happens when you get this big hole that was dug for 2 decades, and we've only had 5 years to work on it. So as we saw this coming with the law that was passed last year, we started talks with our actuary. We actually had a very expensive study done to run up through our city representatives on the board for a pension obligation bond, right? You either need a mass influx of cash or you need a max influx of time. Well, the only ones you can help us with is cash in that formula. So we had a large study done, multiple different scenarios. This was when interest rates were a lot friendlier than they are now. And we came up with several different proposals that we ran up through our city representatives to wherever that ended up. Some of them at no increase to what the city was paying. Actually, the only increase, most of them were under, assuming the city was still going to pay 26. There was 2 scenarios where the city would move up to 28, which is where the city is now. And they would pay that same percent, 16% of it to a bond payment, 12% of it to the pension fund, still at 28, was actually going to save the city $48.1 million over the course of that bond, 20-year bond in these scenarios. So that's kind of what we've been going through as a pension fund, trying to do our best and get the information. We go down to the Pension Review Board meetings. We stay in front of them, figure out what's going on. I'm sure if any of you have read the news, our neighbors to the east are just beginning to what we did 6 years ago. So really this update is that. This is where we were. This is where we are. This is where the state is going to want us in the future. I'm not here asking for money. I'm not here asking for anything. I'm just here to give you information. Any questions so far about anything I've said?
Council, any questions?
So as this pertains to Evergreen, Evergreen, in part of comparing our benefits, looks at how much I contribute out of my paycheck and every other firefighter contributes out of their paycheck. So currently we contribute 16% of our pay. And as I mentioned last time to Mr. Thompson, our normal cost right now, so the cost, the percentage of pay it costs our pension for me to earn 1 year of benefit in retirement life is 15.25%. So right now, I'm paying 16 for a benefit that costs 15.2% of pay. So I'm overpaying a little bit there. And to kind of send that point home a little bit is we are one of 6 funds in the state. And that's 100 pension funds. That's not just Telfer funds like us. There's actually 42 of those. But of all 100 funds in the state, there are 6 now that pay over 100% of their normal costs by their employees. I've got a list here if y'all want to see it. I'm sure you don't want to just hear the names, but we're one of 6. Of those other 6, one of them just chose to shut down this last month. So there's now 5. So I guess what I want you to get from that is, as you're taking these suggestions from Evergreen and wanting us to be in the top third or top quarter, and you're comparing benefits, it's very true what Ms. Muncie said. You are paying 28% of our payroll to our pension. But 0 of that goes to my benefit or any person that works here currently. We pay for our own. And to further drive that point home, 3/4 of our liabilities right now, we have $120 million in liability. Unfunded's about 70. 3/4 of our $120 million of liability are the retirees at home. We can't do anything to their benefit. We can't ask them to help contribute money to that, right? So of the retirees that are out there, 3/4 of our debt are there. So we can only affect the 1/4 of our debt that's still here, which is why we did what we did 6 years ago. And to further drive that point home, we are on a different list for the state as of last week, at the meeting that said the percentage of our debt that is at home that is actually funded, excuse me. So we're on a list of about 15 funds here. Our funded ratio for our retiree debt is 49%. So every penny that I'm putting in right now and every penny that you approved to put in right now goes to fill in that hole that we acquired, I say we as the current board, that we acquired in 2016. Where did that hole come from? Well, that was over 2 decades of very rich benefits, and as the Pension Review Board told Ms. Muncie when she went to testify, a ongoing lack of the city to meet their actuarially defined contribution. The city's always contributed what we've agreed to contribute on, but that's not an actuarially defined contribution. In order to do that, every year we get our evaluation, we'd have to come to you and say, okay, we had a great year in the stock markets, you only have to give us 18% this year. Next year, we had a high turnover rate and real estate fell out the bottom, we need you to give 30% this year. It's very difficult to budget for that. So Telfer Systems do a fixed rate that y'all have adjusted as needed, as, case in point this month. But as you go into these talks with Evergreen and you'll make these choices for OFR and all the other public safety and eventually all the city employees of Odessa, and you start talking about potential raises and comparing benefits, just know that when Ms. Muncie stands up and says you're giving 28% of pay, that, to be frank, means nothing to me as an employee of the city of Odessa, other than you are helping, as a pension board member, I know you're helping to make sure our fund exists, but it is in no way a benefit for me or anybody on the fire department. That 28% is going to fill a hole for the people that are sitting at home right now. My 16% is going to fill that same hole, not to mention the fact that I'm percentage-wise paying for my entire benefit. So that's really what this is. It's just, I just want it to be apples to apples whenever you are comparing these scenarios. It is an expensive proposition. Defined benefits are. That's why only 20% of the country is still in them. 80% of them have pushed them off to their employees because that is cheaper for their business, is it not, Mr. Thompson?
It is.
So if I push that off to the employee and I say, you manage this, you can, I'll give you 2 to 1, 3 to 1, whatever it is, but you manage this, you So like Todd's invested, and then when you retire, you make that pool of money last till you die. That's where 80% of the country has gone. We are more expensive, but because it is a more expensive benefit, and it is only 20% of the country has access to it, this is still something that makes this job enticing to people. Maybe not necessarily just Odessa, because there's 40 other funds that do this in the state, but it's worth the money. And I don't want it to get lost in translation when y'all have to make the tough decisions that you have to make as city staff or city council. And I guess that's about all I have. I came prepared for whatever questions you might have for me, but I just want you to know that we appreciate what you do as a pension board. And I can't speak for the fire department. I can speak for one guy in the fire department. I appreciate what y'all do. This isn't an easy job. I mean, yeah, you volunteered for it, but that can suck sometimes. I volunteered for this position on the pension board, and the three of us and our administrator, you know, a lot of times we catch a lot of flack. But like I said in 2016, I would rather our membership be upset with me someday for getting a check than upset with me for not getting a check. Any questions?
Very good presentation. You're just living too long, that's the problem.
I know, if I would die, no. Hey, Ben, I do have a question. On this with the pensions and what the new state requirement is on the 65%.
Yes, ma'am.
What is are they trying to get these other fire departments to go TMRS? What are they trying to do?
What's interesting about that is their staff actuary actually testified last week in Austin that if like Paris, Texas closed, University Park, Texas closed, for them to close and push their fire employees in TMRS is actually a more expensive proposition because the normal cost for TMRS is actually higher than the normal cost for our plan. And the TMRS was designed for city employees that presumably will work till 60, 65, maybe 70, whatever that number is. Whereas you push firemen into that fund, and now you've got employees that are retiring at 50 or 55. And so it's a much more expensive proposition in the long run. I'd hate to speak for the Pension Review Board and say what they're trying to do. I know that that feeling is out there that, oh, they're trying to put us out of business. As the board of OFR, I don't think we feel that way. We go to every meeting we can down there, 4, 6, 7 a year. We try to stay in front of them. We went to Representative Anchia's legislative committee meeting last month. We try to get in front of the people. We try to hear what they're saying, how they're saying it, what are they talking about, where are they moving. And I really feel like the Pension Review Board has the right intentions. They're really just trying to get the pensions of Texas to a healthier state. Ultimately, we would all love to be fully funded. We would love to have 100% of the $120 million that we owe. We'd love to have that in the bank right now, right? But over the course of, I mean, we could stand up here for a while and talk about how that hole was dug over 2 decades. It's not just us. We were the second fund in the state to tackle this in 2016. Now with this new law, there's 23 Telfer funds that have to do this. So over half of them. We're just ahead of the curve. But I think their heart's in the right place. They have just given us, you know, when you dig a hole over 20 years and they ask you to fill it in 10, that's hard enough. But when you fill it in 5 and now they say, here in 3 years, you're gonna have to fill it in 2, that's a moving target, and sometimes those can be hard to hit.
I appreciate your presentation. You did a very good job with a very complicated subject. Just the one thing I would just add to that is that you didn't mention is that, number one, firefighters can retire very, very early,
Yes,
which
sir.
is 50. On top of that, the average length of longevity for a male probably now is close to 85. So therein lies the other side of the equation. And that's why it gets underfunded very, very fast.
Correct.
And so in a perfect world, if we were smart, and I'm not sure we are, we'd be transitioning out of that plan because it is going to be at some point, and I'm not saying it's today, at some point it's going to be too expensive to afford.
Right.
Because longevity is going up, not down, for people who take halfway good care of themselves, and that's, you know, a big push in every community.
Right.
So it's, you know, it's probably not in this council's lifetime, but I think that day's coming, and you guys kind of need to be thinking about what you'd like to transition to, because, you know, I did that for a living.
Right.
And I understand both sides of it, and I transitioned a bunch of people out of them, because you just, a bunch of, you know, people, you know, other people that had them were physicians, and of course, it busted GM and almost busted Ford and everybody else because they promised more than they could deliver. And that's not your fault, it's not our fault. It happened, back, like you said,
Yes, sir.
many years ago. So
And that's one of the reasons.
It's a very difficult situation and a very tough bullet to bite.
Yes, sir. And that's one of the reasons we changed all the promises 6 years ago. We
I
increased
understand.
retirement age to 55. And actually, the mortality for public safety is much lower than a regular sector worker.
Well, I would expect that to be true too, that's what I'm saying, just the average worker, the length of.
Yes, sir.
they
It
live,
is
so.
expensive, but
Yeah.
if you're gonna look at why do people wanna come work in Odessa, this is definitely not something you wanna take off the list when we're trying to, and to speak to it becoming expensive someday. We actually almost foresee the opposite. We have such a low rate of retirements now because of our high turnover. When you lose 150 people in 5 years, that's 150 people that aren't gonna retire in 25 years. And we don't see, even the young kids that we hire today aren't necessarily asking those long-term questions, right?
Well, that's part of the society today.
Right.
If you go look at the average span somebody lives or keeps a job, it's 3 years, 5 years. I'm not sure what the
Yes,
number is right now. Nobody does what you're doing or what I did and work
Right.
40 years in the same job. People don't do that anymore. They move
Correct.
around a lot. So that's really to your benefit.
Yes, sir, it is. And, one thing that we look at too is we're forcing our members, young and old alike, to save. That's basically all we're doing. We're forcing you to save your money because if you look at the average balance right now of a 55-year-old's 401k, it's 50 grand. If you look at the average balance of a 401k at retirement, it's $250,000. There's not many people that could retire at, let's call it 80, that could make $250,000 last till they die, depending on when that is, right? So really what we try to tell these guys is, yeah, it's a chunk of your check, but all we're doing is forcing you to save. And the way our current plan sits, if you are, I think you asked this question, if you stay alive for 5 years, basically, after you retire, you've gotten every penny back amount-wise, right, that you put in. And so for the rest of whatever that mortality is, we're paying that. We're paying that from investment earnings, we're paying that from money on the money y'all put in there. So it is expensive, but it's also historically, we'll see if it is in the future, but historically, it's one of the reasons people get into this career, one of the many reasons. Anything else?
Very good presentation. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, that's really good. We move on to item I, discuss, consider supplemental budget, item request for 2021-22.
Legal documents.
Okay.
You can sit down for a second. I want to ask a question. So who is here for the expansion? I know I have someone that wants to be able to speak on it. Who's here for the Parkway Road expansion? I recognize some of the developers, but who else is here? Okay, thank you very much. Are y'all residents? Yes. Okay, let me set the record straight. Never did I ever say that I'm canceling this contract or had that intention. Where that narrative came from or who started it, we can presume all we want. But there's something that was given to me that I want to be able to read. I got a call from a friend of mine who I serve on the downtown lines with. She started asking me some questions on the road. I started answering them. And in the midst of speaking about that, I realized we were talking about two different things. So I gave him a call. And I asked him to clarify, were we on the same page? And that's when I realized that we were not. So it was conveyed to him at church, and he goes to Crossroads, that there was a declaration issued that was left out of the original, and that a new one was issued, and that I refused to sign the resolution because I was attempting to cancel the project and the funding. First of all, none of that's true. Two, I didn't know anything about the declaration being left out or a new one being created. Second, the mayor doesn't have veto power. So that's a false narrative that was out there, and I want to straighten that out. And I apologize how that got out there, but that was never the questions I asked. My question when I walked in to sign the documents in the resolution in City Secretary Grimaldo's office is when she put the resolution, I always read them. This one wasn't, it's just like, you know what? What is this? I reread it. I said, give me a refresher. Walk me through it again. And it just, I mean, I don't know if I was having a senior moment, it just was not registered. I asked for, from clarification. We sat down the next day and gave me, an explanation that just wasn't clear. And so yesterday, I wind up receiving a lot of information about the declaration. So these were my questions of what I was questioning. My question was, I realized that the resolution that come before me for my signature, it was 2 months old. So my question, and the reason why I put it on the work session was, why did it take 2 months? When usually it takes a lot less. I also asked what was put into this new resolution that was left out. And because the council approved the original resolution without the new declaration, that's what was put in, because we voted on this one without that, and it was put in after the fact, did we need to go as a council, come back to the dais and add it as an amendment? So was the original document legal? We didn't have an answer for that. The other one is, what is the procedure of having the resolutions and the ordinances before the mayor's office to sign? We don't have a policy or a formula. When you go to the charter that the city of Odessa has, it specifically says that the mayor doesn't have veto. So that right there, that narrative is squashed. Now, state statute does say that I can question a resolution or ordinance, but I have to do it in writing within 3 days of the passage. But that's not something that we have adopted. Anything of that nature that makes a change has to be only done through charter by you, the citizens, in a vote. So my questions and why I put this item on the agenda today for discussion was simply this. What is the declaration that was added? Because I didn't find it on the resolution. Second, my question is a legal question. Since the original resolution was passed without the declaration, it was added after the fact, do we have to make an amendment? So, first question, Ms. Brooks, will you answer that for me?
Mayor, in this case, we don't have to make an amendment. What we did is a reaffirmation. Because we have the documentation and the minutes and things of that nature where council approved the clear intent of the resolution, we can bring it back to council as a reaffirmation, and that's what we did in this agenda item.
Okay. In the future, it would behoove us, especially me when I'm signing these, to be able to see an email to come forward, because this took 2 months, and let me tell you, this resolution was not fresh on my mind. And so, and I just wanted to make sure, because this is 10.5 million. And we had this discussion in July, am I correct?
We started in July.
When we
yes.
wind up having the workshop.
Yes, yes.
And then we came back to council in August.
Yes.
And then we basically put in, that's when we dedicated 10.5, when we discussed that we were short from the original 20 million that was passed, 2019? Okay. So my other question is, why did it take 2 months? Can you answer that, Ms. Munson?
Cindy will give you a chronology.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for catching this. What happened was we made the determination in the budget workshop about the 10.5 million, 9 million going towards streets, $1.5 million going towards parks, and then we had an additional $1 million going to streets out of the 22-23 budget, okay? So that was added to the overall supplemental projects that were $2,998,194 throughout all the funds, okay? When the Faudree project was brought to council on August the 9th, we talked about where the money was gonna come from for the shortfall because the project was exceeding that. And so we discussed taking that from the general fund money, $10,940,000, of which $10 million we had already talked about in the budget workshop, the 9 and the 1, okay? And so in that resolution that
awarded the bid for the Fodry project, we actually were awarding that $9 million plus the $1 million out of the New Year money that was approved by y'all in the budget workshop. Are we all on track so far? Okay. So when, at the next council meeting, we did the supplemental projects, the presentation from me to y'all was over what we discussed in the workshop, which was the $2 million, and it included talk about the $9 million and the 1.5, right? So in that original resolution, we just, when the resolution wasn't actually attached to the agenda item when we did this in the work session, and then it went on consent agenda in the council meeting. But the resolution that got done just included the $2,998,000, even though we talked about the other amounts in the meeting. So that is why it's a reaffirmation of the resolution. So what's missing is the 1.5 million that's going to parks has never been appropriated. And we found that as we were trying to close out our fiscal year end. And so that's why it's taking this process to get it to you. So that is the correction that we are doing, the reaffirmation. Legal had researched this for me. And so originally when we had the change in the resolution to you, it said 10.5 million.
Yeah.
So that had to be corrected, thank you. And so legal's done the research, and this is the result. We are only adding to the reaffirmation that the 1.5 for the parks is accounted for.
And that's
And
why,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, well, that's why when I saw that 10.5 and when I was asking, I was not getting those answers. I was like, wait a minute, I don't recall this. And so let's go back. I said, no, guys, I can't do
Well, that's
this.
okay, because
Yeah.
my memory was bad that we had already done them
Yeah,
on
and
the
so,
Fodry
and so,
project.
the thing is,
so-
this is 10.5. Put my John Hancock under, I just want to make sure that we stay legal on
Yes.
this. And how it got into a whirlwind that I'm sitting there and I'm gonna cancel. Let me tell you, you know,
I
we've had, this has been discussed to death. So the thing is that whoever guys stirred up this hornet's nest about, we're gonna cancel this in Rogan, that's not true. None of it's true.
Right.
And so, but now I know you guys can make a meeting at 3 o'clock. So we may have that debate about moving our meeting, so everybody says they won't make it at 3, yeah, well. And so, council, anybody have any questions? I do have someone that wants to be able to speak, expanding Fodry Road, even though it's not on the agenda about the expansion. Can they legally come up there and speak about the expansion, because that's not how it's worded?
We can do it for citizen comment on non-agenda items.
Okay. So, anyone wanting to come forward to talk about the expanding of Fodry Road is non-agenda item. Council, I will remind, is non-agenda item. You cannot respond, but we can direct staff to respond to the person that is addressing this item 9. That person that wanting to come forward can do so by coming to the podium, stating your first name or your name for the record.
Hello, my name is Haley Trevino. I was born and raised here in Odessa. I appreciate the clarification and just want to further address the importance of not postponing the expansion of Fodry. Parksville Ranch, Estates Shiloh, and Ponderosa is an increasingly growing residential area, and not to mention the commercial growth that is also taking place. There are new apartment complexes going up, new housing, a charter school, which is Compass Academy, and new commercial buildings nearby, including the Stripes, the new McDonald's, a Dollar General, residential storage units, as well as RV and boat storage units, as well as the Northwind Crossing Shopping Center, which contains the bar, drink, as well as a nail salon and bar, and the liquor store right next to it. Around the corner is the T-Star Donuts, as well as empty units next to it, just further emphasizing the growth that is to come for that area. There's roughly 320 homes in the surrounding subdivisions and counting. This is not including the 2 apartment complexes located directly on Faudree. This road is extremely narrow with only 1 lane going both north and south, north of 191 all the way to P-Bar Ranch Road. This road also has a wide curve and it does not have any street lights. So I have printed out a couple of pictures that I took last night. This first one is south of 191, and you can see that it's well lit, and there's plenty of lanes for traffic. This is the image north of 191 with no street lights, and only lighting is coming from houses nearby. So it's extremely dangerous, and I personally feel unsafe driving. The crash rate is also high on this road. My brother is amongst the fatal car crashes that have taken place on this road. In addition to this, because there are only 2 lanes, when there are crashes on this road, the entire road is blocked off, and none of the residents have access in or out because there is no alternative road access. If the road were wider and needed to be blocked for any reason, it could be resulted in just closing off a lane or 2 and still resuming traffic north and southbound.
3 minutes are up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to item 10, discuss the sale of water in Greater Gardendale Water Supply Corporation. City Manager?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. The item for discussion and direction for you this afternoon is the possible sale of water to Greater Gardendale Water Supply Corporation. The sale of water to Gardendale has probably been around for about 2 decades. Mayor, if you don't mind, I'll let the visitors leave.
They might want to stay, they might want to hear.
They're
Don't want to
moving.
hear about Gardendale water sales? Well, I guess not. Give them the option.
As I said, Mayor, the sale of water to Gardendale has probably been around for about 2 decades. However, more serious discussion started in early 2019 with the Greater Gardendale. Once again, Gardendale contacted the city about having this discussion about the possibility of sale. At that time, Gardendale began to do their due diligence, and that is determining what their best options were for their customers. COVID, of course, hit at that point, and the discussions were delayed. However, Gardendale came back to the city in 2001, early 2001, and reinitiated those discussions. The council may recall that in 2020, the city also finalized its wholesale water contract with the Ector County Utility District. As we were discussing the sale of water to Gardendale, we concluded that if we were going to do that, if the council chose to do that, that the Gardendale could follow the ECUD model that we utilized, same methodology, same formulary, in order to come up with a rate that would suit the need of Gardendale. Gardendale worked with the city's rate consultant to revise the wholesale rate model that would be specific for Gardendale. Remember that there's a lot of components that went into that rate model as well. Based on the rate model and the potential rate for wholesale water to Gardendale, the comparative rate for Gardendale would be $4.01 per 1,000 gallons. Any agreement that Gardendale would go into would have the same sort of provisions as we do currently for ECUD. In terms of volumes, Gardendale's average daily demand would be at 0.095 million gallons a day. The maximum flow for any one period, 24-hour period, would be at 0.23 million gallons a day. That would represent less than 1% of what the city consumes and its citizens consume in any one given day. The term that the Gardendale that we would propose for Gardendale water would be the same as we would for ECUT, and that is a 10-year term with 2 possible 10-year terms after that. One final note on that, any provision, any contract, any agreement that we would have with Gardendale would require Gardendale bear the full cost of any improvements in order to get that supply to them, any infrastructure that would be associated with delivering that water. This would also include a 24-inch water line that was previously identified by the city as needed infrastructure if the city continued to grow. Furthermore, any infrastructure work would be done to city specification. Again, we wanted to bring this item for you for discussion. We have a representative, Mr. Wise, here, who is the president of Greater Gardendale Water Supply Corporation. I don't know if he'd like to add anything, but as I said, we've been working with Gardendale for some time. They're at the point that they are ready to execute an agreement with the city if the city chooses to do so. Mr. Wise, did you have any comments? Sure. Sir.
Now, Mr. Wise, all your comments will be about the water supply and not the rodeo sandhill.
I am changing hats. Yeah, I served as president of Gardendale Water, and I'd just like to say, first of all, to Michael and also to Mr. Kerr, Ms. Ramirez, the effort that has been put in by them to get to where we are now. Brooks was also part of that and appreciative of that. But we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the work of them in this, and I certainly do appreciate it. But the real winners are the residents of Gardendale, because our water is running out for our source that we have now that comes groundwater out close to 1788. It was projected by several water hydrologists that it would last for 2 lifetimes when we first started this process.
Of course they did.
And like was mentioned, there are people on our board right now that have served for 2.5 decades to try to get a secondary source to make this happen. So that chronological list of things that we did to get here is certainly appreciated. But again, we are under a moratorium for any commercial growth. So we can't sell any water to anybody. We just lifted it for residential, new residential last year, and subsequently, because there's a limitation there, we did go to commercial up to 5,000 gallons a month, which will run a bathroom and a sink at a business. So this will certainly help the growth in Gardendale to have this water and help us all sleep a lot easier. So I thank you for your consideration. Any questions?
Let me ask this question. Do we have a map for the route?
A map of
Well, with the proposed 24-inch route?
Yes, sir, we can get you that.
Okay, and also, what system exists out there? Is it all water well, or do you already have a system
Yes,
to the
this is
to the homes?
groundwater that we have now. We are operating off 11 wells in half a section is what we've got. So we've got a lot of straws in the same glass, and fracking has made a tremendous dip in that glass, and several of the landowners around us are trying to sell it as fast as they can, and that's why we had to put the moratorium.
How are you acquiring the finance, and what are we talking about as far as money on the Gardendale side?
Well, we were saving money to do this project, and then we would finance it. We have some financing with USDA right now for the initial purchase of the system when we started 2.5 decades ago with this. But thanks to ARPA and Ector County, we have received $4.5 million to help provide this water line and the construction of it to us, which would include a standpipe at the area where we're going to take it, the line to get us to Gardendale, and then we would have a pump station with to separate, again, the 2 systems so that we can pump into our system.
That pump station, is it going to be also be able to handle growth into the foreseeable future?
So growth for Gardendale?
Yeah.
Yes, although their growth would be capped and limited.
Is this going to put any pressure on our upper plane?
Tom, you want to address that? I don't believe it is, Mayor. The volumes we're talking about are pretty minor in comparison.
Right now, but
Be through with me.
Yeah, yes, sir.
we appreciate working with Gardendale and all of the persons that they've had available.
They haven't
for us.
built it yet, and they haven't paid for it yet, so let's just wait.
That's right. This would come off of our upper plane, but we do have ample capacity for these amounts that they're talking about. Their ultimate, or their projection out for some time would be maximum 900 gallon a minute flow rate, 200 gallon a minute average, whereas right now we're talking about 66, 67 gallons a minute. But
Would this affect flow as we're going north to the east? What's it, Larry's Bell's place up there?
Parksville?
Parksville.
so
That's
the
downhill, I think.
So what they have proposed in their construction would be the 24-inch that we're talking about would be going from Evans on 100th Street and heading east. That is the alignment of a 24-inch that would be proposed for us to build out to the east for future expansion. That would eventually serve an elevated tank out in the Parksville area, as well as come back down Fodry to tie into our mains. Yes, sir.
Right. So this looks like it solves a lot of problems for us. Eventually we'll get the water tower that's needed out that direction.
It will
right?
be.
And it looks like it's a win-win situation to me because they're gonna build the line and we're already annexed something just north of 100th Street, so that future expansion has already occurred. And so this looks like a great win-win situation to me,
So,
from what I
Let
researched.
let me ask this question. If the line's gonna be going east, we'll be able to, down there to Larry Bell's place, we'll be able to access it for commercial? Off of this 24-inch line? Or does he have to build an additional one for the 191 Yukon route?
That's a technical question I'm gonna ask Tom.
That's right.
Okay, so basically this one's going into the Gardendale, right? This 24-inch line.
Yes, sir.
But we also have a commercial type of property that's expanding from Yukon to 191. Would that have to be a separate 24-inch line for commercial and residential, or can we tee off of this one?
So there is an 18-inch line that runs along Yukon all the way from the loop out to Parksville. So
Right to
that
the end
line
of
does
Fodry.
exist.
So we can
This
extend that.
24-inch would be further north, would run east. Then it would turn at about the Fodry alignment going further north. I mean, that road does not exist at this time, but
Yeah.
that's a future alignment.
Yeah.
That's about where the elevated storage tank would be planned.
Okay.
And that line would come back down and tie in again at Yukon and Fodry.
Fodry, yeah.
I mean, if you drive out Fodry all the way to the top,
Yeah.
you go over the little hill and there's a fire hydrant way down there.
Okay.
And so this
already there.
24-inch, as far as capacity goes, is not necessary that size for serving just Greater Gardendale. The 24-inch is sized based on our future expansion, and they're offering to build that portion in conjunction with serving them.
Sounds good.
Good
Any
deal.
questions?
Answered
Mayor,
mine.
you will see that agreement at the council meeting next Tuesday.
That's a win-win for everybody.
Seeing that there's no more business before the city council, I have a motion by Councilmember Sprouls. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Councilmember
Good job,
Swanner. All in favor indicated by saying aye. All opposed indicated by saying nay. Motion passed unanimously. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor. Anybody taking my place?